Okay, so as long as you have a basic math vocabulary, you should be able to figure out the correct answer to this problem. Let's take a look at the problem. It says the following: separate 27 into two parts whose product is 92. What are the numbers? All right, so let's take a look at our choices because this is a multiple choice question. So A is 18 and 9, B is 20 and 7, C is 23 and 4, and D is 25 and 2. Now, feel free to use a calculator, but if you can figure this out, go ahead and put your answer into the comment section. I'll share the correct answer in just 1 second. Then, of course, I'm going to walk through step by step how to solve this problem. But before we get started, let me quickly introduce myself. My name is John, and I have been teaching middle and high school math for decades. And if you need help learning math, well, check out my math help program at tcmathacademy.com. You can find a link to that in the description below. And if this video helps you out, or if you just enjoy this content, make sure to like and subscribe, as that definitely helps me out. All right, so let's take a look at the problem one more time before I show you the answer. So we want to separate the number 27 into two parts, or two numbers whose product is 92. What are the numbers? All right, so let's take a look at the answer. The correct answer is C, 23 and 4. Now, if you got that right, you definitely get a happy face, an A plus, and 100%, and a certificate of excellence for being able to figure out this math problem. And this particular math problem can be very easy to solve with just basic math when we have our little multiple choice answers here, because one of these answers is the correct answer. Obviously, the answer is C. But what's going to make this video interesting, hopefully, is we're going to take a look at what happens when we don't have a multiple choice question. Okay, so we just have the question. How would we determine the correct answer in that situation? Well, we're going to talk about that, but let's go ahead and get into the solution right now. All right, so again, the correct answer is C. And the reason why I said that, as long as you have a basic math vocabulary, you should be able to figure this problem out. Because as long as you understand what the word product means, well, then you should just be able to kind of reason through and identify the correct answer through just trial and error. So, what does product mean? Well, the product is the result of multiplication. So, the product of 2 and 3 is 2 times 3, or 6. Okay, so the product of 2 and 3 is 6. So again, we're talking about multiplication. So what we're talking about here is we're going to separate 27, okay, into two numbers, all right, two parts. So we're going to have number 1 and number 2, and the product of these two numbers is going to be 92, okay? So what we can do is just look at our choices, and you can see, for example, like D, the product of these two numbers is what? Well, that's 25 times 2, that's 50. Well, that's not 92, so we can just get rid of that. And here you could just kind of go through each of these numbers. The only pair of numbers where the product is going to be 92 is 23 and 4. Now, all of these numbers, though, right here, do add up to 27, right? So 25 and 2, 27, 23, and 4, 27, 20, 27, 27, 18, and 9, 27. So we can't really, determine the right answer that way. We need to understand what product means. Okay, so hopefully all of you are saying, yes, Mr. Two, a math man, that's exactly what I did. Well, that is fantastic. But now let's talk about what are we going to do if this is not a multiple choice question. And this is where it's going to get interesting. And a lot of you are going to say, hey, Mr. YouTube Math Man, are you going to use algebra here? Well, yes, indeed I am. So we really are talking about an algebra word problem. All right, so let's go ahead and get into it right now. And for those of you that don't like algebra, just remember algebra is a tool, and there's no reason to be afraid of it. But obviously, you need to know, the skills involved in algebra to solve algebra word problems. But let's go ahead and take a look at this problem this way. All right, so we don't have any multiple choice options, and here again is our problem. All right, so we want to separate 27 into two parts whose product is 92. So we understand what product is, and we're thinking, all right, we have 27. We're going to create two numbers. So we're going to have some number here. We're going to multiply it by another number. We just know that the product of these two numbers is 92. So this, again, would be a perfect situation to use algebra because we are dealing with unknown values. We don't know what these numbers are. So we should just let a variable x represent one of the numbers. Okay, so one or both of the numbers. So let's take 27 and let's go ahead and let x equal one of the numbers. Okay, so we're going to break up 27 and to two parts. We'll let x be one of the numbers. So what will be the other number? Well, if one of the numbers is x, okay, well, what would be the other number? Well, the other number has to be 27 minus x. Now, why is that? Because these two numbers, when we add them together, x plus 27 minus x, when we add these two numbers together, x and minus x, the x's go away and we're left with 27. Remember, we're taking 27 and we're breaking it apart into two numbers. One number can be x and the other number could be 27 minus x. And when we add these together, we have 27. Okay, so this is a really important part of this problem. And this is probably one aspect to this problem that could be confusing for a lot of students. Okay, remember, we want to kind of think about, all right, what do the variables represent? Well, as long as we have x equal to one number, and if we think this through, okay, these two numbers add up to 27. Well, the other number must be 27 minus x. All right, so that is our kind of initial setup, but we can't do anything here in terms of answering the question just because we have x and 27 minus x. Well, we want to solve for x. Well, that means we need to use the rest of the problem, and the rest of the problem is this part, okay? The product is 92. So these two numbers, these two parts, the product of these two numbers is 92. And anytime you see that word is in mathematics, that means the equal sign. So that means our number, one number times the other number, that when we multiply them together, that's going to be equal to 92. So we could just kind of build ourselves a lovely algebraic equation just like this. All right, so we have one number times the other number. The product is going to be 92 or is 92. So x times 27 minus x is equal to 92. Now, one thing here to really pay attention to is I'm using parentheses. Now, I could just write 27 minus x, but notice that I am using parentheses around this difference. Anytime in algebra you have a sum or difference, something like a plus b, put parentheses around anything that you're adding or subtracting. Okay, this is going to be really important because here I'm going to be multiplying x times 27 minus x. And if you write it this way, x times 27 minus x, you're going to forget to use the distributive property. Okay, this expression here means x times 27, which is 27x minus x. This is going to give you the wrong answer. Here, this is what we want. This is x times 27 minus x. This is the other number in one group. So got to be very careful here because it's not going to be obvious to put parentheses around your sums or differences, excuse me. But here we go. So we have x times 27 minus x is equal to 92. So now what we need to do is solve for x. All right, so let's go ahead and get started on the algebra now. And what we have here is a quadratic equation. All right, so the first thing we need to do is to distribute this x. So this is going to be x times 27, so that's 27x. X times this x is negative x squared. That's equal to 92. So here, again, the highest power of this polynomial is x squared. So we have a quadratic equation. So we want to set this entire thing equal to 0. Now, if you're saying, hey, Mr. YouTube Math Man, I'm totally lost here. You're talking about quadratic equations. I don't know what to do. Well, I'll give you some suggestions on how you can really, learn how to solve quadratic equations. Just one second. For those of you that are saying, yes, Mr. YouTube Math Man, I understand. Please proceed. Okay, so let's go ahead and continue on here. We're trying to solve for x. So we want to get everything set equal to 0. All right, this is kind of the initial setup when we have a quadratic equation that is a trinomial, a quadratic trinomial. we have an x term. All right, so we have negative x squared plus 27x minus 92. Well, I'm not a big fan of having a negative in front of the x squared term, so you can leave it this way, or we can simply divide everything by negative 1, and I actually prefer that. It won't change the answer, okay? So if you left it this way, that's perfectly fine, but I'm going to divide everything by negative 1, so negative x squared divided by negative 1 gives me x squared, excuse me, 27x divided by negative 1, negative 27x, negative 92 divided by negative 1, positive 92, and then 0 divided by negative 1 is 0. Okay, so here is my quadratic equation. So again, what we want to do here is solve for x. So let's going to take the next step, which of course is having you quickly subscribe to my YouTube channel. Now you might be saying, "Hey, Mr. YouTube Math Man, you always stop and ask people to subscribe to your channel." Well, I do. Okay, I need your help. you know, it takes me a good amount of time to put these videos together. What I try to do is pick out good problems, interesting problems, and common problems, especially for algebra word problems. If you follow me on YouTube, hopefully you are a current subscriber, and if you are, thank you so much. But if you're not, I have a ton of word problems, math word problems on my YouTube channel, and I try to hit the most common types, okay, which are, problems like this, area problems, mixture problem, motion problems, rate times time problems. Anyways, what I'm getting at is if you understand, these general kind of type of problems, right? And I would say there's probably maybe like 10 categories, then you're going to do pretty well in your algebra courses and when it comes to word problems because a lot of people struggle with word problems. So again, the only way you're going to get good at this is to understand the algebra and then just apply that algebra to a lot of different situations. But anyways, I do put in a good amount of thought to my videos, and hopefully you're getting some value out of my channel and my videos. And if that's the case, the best way to support my work is to hit that subscribe button and that notification bell because my goal is to reach as many people as possible. See, as a math teacher, I am not happy unless I got people in my math class. So, anyways, to help me out on YouTube, all you have to do is to hit that subscribe button. Now, if you do need help with quadratic equations, algebra, or anything else, I'm going to leave links to my full main math courses in the description of this video. And my courses are a big step up from what I do on YouTube. So it's really comprehensive, detailed, instruction. I pretty much cover everything for all, respective topics. So if it's quadratic equations, polynomials, trigonometry, pre-calculus, geometry, whatever the case is, you're going to get a complete full-on, education in my math courses. But if you like studying for math notes, I'm going to leave links to my math notes in the description as well. But let's go ahead and finish up this problem because we still have a decent amount of work to do. All right, so if we solve this quadratic equation, we will find our two numbers, right? So we took 27 and we broke it up into two parts. One part, one number is x, and the other number was 27 minus x. And we know that the product of these two numbers is 92. All right, so when we did all this lovely algebra, we ended up with this quadratic equation. But if we can solve for x, we will find these two numbers. Okay, so we have, again, this quadratic equation. What should we do? Well, we have options here, okay? So in this particular quadratic equation, you might be thinking, well, I may need to use the quadratic formula, okay? Well, I wouldn't rush to the quadratic formula. Quadratic formula is x is equal to minus b plus or minus the square root of b squared minus 4ac all over 2a. I mean, you need to know the quadratic formula. It's important to be able to solve quadratic equations with the quadratic formula, but don't just rush into the quadratic formula when you have a quadratic trinomial. What you want to do is to see if you can factor this quadratic trinomial into two binomials that are equal to 0. You see, this is equal to 0. So if we can factor this into two binomials, well, that is the preferred way, a much easier and more direct approach to solving or finding the solutions to this quadratic equation. All right, so let's go ahead and try to factor this. Now, if we can't factor this, then we must use the quadratic formula. But in this case, we can factor, and I'm going to show you a cool little trick to find the factors of this quadratic trinomial. Now, some of you are really good at factoring already, but if you struggle with factoring, this is a great little shortcut or kind of little hack you can use. So here we have our quadratic equation written in standard form, highest to lowest power. So it's important. Remember when I had the quadratic formula written out, I erased it already. We have A, B, and C values, A, B, and C, right? So A is going to be equal to what? Well, A would be equal to 1 here, B would be equal to negative 27, and C is equal to 92. So it's important to have your quadratic trinomial written in standard form, highest to lowest power, and the coefficients of these respective terms of the polynomial uh, are going to be our A, B, and C values. A is the coefficient of the leading term, B is our x term, and then C is our constant. Okay. Now, it's always, again, important to have your trinomials in standard form. But what we're going to do here is try to factor this quadratic trinomial. So here is this little technique. So you're going to take the leading coefficient, which is 1, and you're going to multiply by 92. Okay, so that's going to be 92. Now, what we're going to try to do is find factors of 92 that add up to negative 27. Okay, so we're going to try to look at factors of 92 that add up to negative 27. Now you'll see why that is going to be important here in a second. So let's take a look at some factors of 92. So 2 times 46 is 92, right? These are factors of 92. 4 times 23, 92. Negative 4 times negative 23 is also 92. A negative times a negative is a positive. But these factors here add up to negative 27. See, these add up to a positive 27. I'm looking for the factors that add up to this middle number here, negative 27. Now, I'm quickly going over this little technique. If you want to learn more about this, I have tons of videos on factoring trinomials on my YouTube channel, or just check out my full Algebra 1 course. I'll teach you everything about quadratic equations, factoring, etc., etc. All right, so here, these factors of 92, negative 4. Remember, a negative times a negative is a positive, so negative 4 times negative 23 is 92, but these add up to negative 27. And that's awesome because these numbers are our factors, the numbers in our two binomials. So remember, when we're factoring a quadratic trinomial, we have x squared, so we're going to have two binomials. One is going to be x here, one is going to have x there, one's going to have x there. So the hard part of factoring is to figure out the numbers, right? So the numbers now are simply going to be negative 4 and negative 23. So I'm going to plop them in right there. And here are our factors. Okay, so this is a great little shortcut to factor. But if you already know how to factor, you can kind of disregard this, but I love this little technique. Okay, so we have x minus 4 times x minus 23 is equal to 0. So at this point, all we have to do is set each factor equal to 0 and solve for x. So x minus 4. Remember, we have the 0 product property now. So this thing times this thing is 0. Anything times, if you have two things and the product of those two things is 0, if I said, hey, I got two numbers, and when I multiply them together, the answer is 0. What does that tell you about the numbers? Well, it means that one or both of those numbers must be 0. You can't get 0 as the result of multiplication, as the product, unless one or both of those numbers are 0. So what we're going to do is set each factor equal to 0 because you're like, hey, we know one of you guys is 0, so x minus 4 is equal to 0, and x minus 23 will set equal to 0. And when we solve for x, we get 4 and 23. Okay, so 4 and 23, if we add them together, guess what? Indeed, we get back to 27. And when we multiply them, we get back to 92, which is the product. All right, so this is all the work that we would have to do, excuse me, if we didn't have a multiple choice situation. But if we did have a multiple choice situation, remember, as long as you understand the problem, use the answers to your advantage. More often than not, especially on math tests and quizzes, anything that has a multiple choice question, typically, the test designers, the people that make the test, which, I've made a ton of tests. They really think through the questions. Okay. In other words, nothing's kind of done just kind of randomly. Okay. When people make good tests, good exams, your teachers and whatnot, they think through and they try to give you hints or maybe alternative strategies where you could still reason through and pick the right answer. But hopefully, this particular problem was interesting. And if you got this right, that's fantastic. And if you didn't get this right, but you learned something, well, that's fantastic as well. All right. So, with all that being said, I definitely wish you all the best in your math adventures. Thank you for your time and have a great day.